were pretty much the first online sports nutrition brand. The Amazon of protein, if you like.
Right now, Myprotein does over 300 million in annual revenue. Was your dream that big?
I didn't see it being the #1 brand in the world, which it is now.
Oliver Cookson built Myprotein from a garage with a 500-pound overdraft, scaling it into one of the world's biggest sports nutrition brands before selling it for 58 million pounds. He's also a leading voice in lean business thinking and the author of Bootstrap Your Life.
So I started with £500, and that was the only funding in the business till I sold. Maintained 100% equity, no investors, no debt, all the way through till exit. My best ever marketing initiative so far was no one else was doing it then. The cost of acquisition was pennies. It was a third of all new business for Myprotein back then.
Which problems did money bring to your life?
A lot.
Did it change you?
If I'm honest,
Oliver, how would you introduce yourself to our audience?
oh, good question. I guess people know me best for the founder of Myprotein, but that was a long time ago. So I think I've evolved a lot since then. So I guess I'd introduce myself as hopefully a humble, hardworking guy from Manchester, 47, with big dreams.
Beautiful. You grew up in Manchester, and one of the things that I always like to ask, because I'm still trying to understand, is if entrepreneurs are made, as in, does your life teach you to become an entrepreneur, or you're born as an entrepreneur? So how was your youth, your childhood in Manchester? Talk to me about it.
Look, it's a question that it started when I started to write my book. That was the question I wanted to answer, and it's something I did come up with my own conclusion. But I guess my life in my childhood was probably not perfect, but what is perfect? But I had a lot of love. So I was born in inner city Manchester, in a place called Withington, which is working class at best. I was born in a bedsit with my mother and my father, and my dad was a second-hand car dealer, and my mum was a secretary. So both hardworking people, but not obviously the middle class or above. We then moved to a place in North Manchester called Bury, where we stayed for a number of years before moving to South Manchester. And so I guess my mum and dad separated when I was around 9, which created its own issues. I'm an only child. Well, I was then. My father's since had children. So, but my mum showed a lot of love, as did my father. But it created a real, instilled a lot of determination for wanting better for myself when I was older. So, I'm not playing the old pity party, but there was certain things I didn't have that I wanted, like the new trainers, but even things like, with the flat my mum lived in, we didn't have central heating. So it just made me want more. So it really did instill. So I think it nurtured the entrepreneurial drive in me.
And then you quit high school, right?
Yeah, no, not. So I stayed in high school till I was 16, so I didn't quit.
Okay.
I only got 1 GCSE, which wasn't very good. And then I spent a week in college, which I quit college.
Why did you quit college?
It doesn't sound very nice, the answer, but I thought I knew more than the teacher. So I'd had IT. I wanted to do IT. I actually got a U in IT in high school. And then there was 2 levels of IT in college. There was lower and upper. And I went into lower, and I thought I knew more. Well, I did actually. I know more because I was also doing development then. And I had a big passion for computers since about 11 or 12. So I just thought, there's no point in this because I do actually know more. It's not actually teaching me anything. I'm just going to be sat here, and I hate standing still. I hate grass growing under my feet. So I just quit. And I thought that was the best decision at the time. No one else did, but...
What did you do?
I had a period of drift. I had a period of probably doing things that I shouldn't do. I was probably going out too much, messing around. And then I actually found a modern apprenticeship, which was, I don't know if it's still a thing now, but essentially I was working as a junior developer in a IT company, software development company, making IDE drivers for industrial machines. So it's effectively making one machine talk to another. Mm-hmm. but it was, C++. It was super difficult. I went in I was making cups and teas and photocopying, let's not lie, but it certainly taught me a lot than college did.
What have you learned?
I learned a lot of social dynamics within an office, which is very important. So learning when to speak, when not to speak, what the dynamics are. Everyone's different. Everyone responds to different ways, instructions, delegation. I learned that if you want to do something, you need to do it yourself. And I wanted to learn how to make websites, and I taught myself in my spare time because one of the developers there showed me the World Wide Web in 1996, which was obviously quite early. And I just learned the discipline you need to work in a 9 to 5 job as well. And that taught me a lot.
And do you think you could have become a better entrepreneur if you would have attended university?
I don't believe so. Who knows? But I don't believe so. I think the university of doing is better for me. As we discussed before, I agree with you. I'm not a big believer in university. Maybe for something like medicine or law, potentially. But for entrepreneur and business, I think doing is a lot better than theory.
And for any aspiring entrepreneur, would you then advise them to get a job before building their business?
It depends on your situation, right? So I had to, because I needed to work to live, to pay for. I had to pay for my house, to pay for everything. But if you're fortunate where you got someone who potentially could support that time, then I don't think you even need the job really. You can go straight in. Maybe, but I always think these benefits of the job in terms of the things I mentioned then. But I think getting straight in is a good way, but not going in big, doing it in the right sequence.
Okay. Talk to me about the moment when you decided that, yes, I wanna become an entrepreneur.
I probably can't remember. I was young. So there's a story when I was in primary school. I was 8, and I don't remember this. My mum presented it to me a number of years ago now, about 3 or 4 years ago, I think. And the teacher actually asked, the question was, because it's in the jotter. The teacher asked, "What do you want to be when you're older?" To the school, to the class, sorry. And I said, a lot of people were saying racing car driver, astronaut, football player. But I said, I want to be a businessman. I want to create lots of, I can't remember word for word. I want to create lots of jobs and give people an opportunity or something like that. And I was 8 when I wrote that. So I don't know where that came from. I don't remember it, but my mum she actually framed it it was actually what I wrote, and the teacher said, well done. She actually framed it and gave it me a number of years ago. And I thought that was pretty powerful for me, because it made me understand what my mentality was at 8 years old. And I have no idea where that came from, because my mum and my father aren't entrepreneurs, so I have no idea. I still can't reason it.
And what fueled you to open your first business, Myprotein?
Well, it wasn't my first business. It was the first business that was materially successful. So I had a few businesses before, which all helped shape the Myprotein journey. So I believe sometimes in life you do things and you don't know why you're doing it at the time, but then later in life you look back and you go, that was the reason it helped. You join the dots. So I had I used to import grey Super Nintendos from Japan, because they used to come out in Japan a lot earlier than in the UK. So I used to import them as a grey import. So I had a company called Paradox Supplies that did that so I had a few different businesses anyway. But Myprotein, I guess I've always been curious, and I know that's a slight cliche, but I'm never satisfied with someone telling me the answer. I want to know why on everything. So I remember I joined a gym when I was 16, and that was a big thing for me. That created that was a turning point in my life. I can be as strong as that. But then a few years after, 5 years after, I used protein powders, creatine, or I was really into going to the gym, bodybuilding really, not extreme. And then I looked on the back of the pack of whey protein. I was using a Maximuscle products at the time called, basically a protein product, Promax, I think it was. And what is whey protein? So what is in this? And the flavor, it said whey protein, flavors, sweeteners, some vitamins. And what is whey protein? I didn't actually know. So I actually went online. It was Alta Vista back then. So it was 2002, around then. And then what is whey protein? And whey protein is the byproduct of cheese. And so I thought, okay, that's interesting. And had a big passion for making websites. That was my job. So I thought there's an opportunity here where I can manufacture the product, sell it online direct, become a brand, sell it for half the price and give you that direct consumer model. So that's where it started, yeah.
So if that's fascinating, so interesting. So the idea for Myprotein didn't come from you thinking I can build a better product, but it came from you thinking that I can leverage my experience in creating websites, and then hence this would give me an advantage in distributing from a distribution point of view.
Absolutely, yeah. It was we were pretty much the first online sports nutrition brand. So we were we were the Amazon of protein, if you like. Obviously on a much smaller scale, but that was it's the better price and the model, yeah.
So you had this idea, and then how did you bring this idea into a reality? So take me from idea to execution.
So I was working full time at the time as a web developer for an educational provider who worked for the BBC and such like. They made websites for subsites for various educational pieces. So I was doing that, but I knew it was very much a stepping stone. It paid my mortgage because I bought the house at the same time. I needed the income to get a mortgage, and then. So I just jumped straight into it. I'm not going to lie. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have anything. It was all here. I just super excited. So I started ringing the dairies. I bought whey protein. I got samples of the raw material. I started flavoring it with Nesquik and then flavorings, and then it ended up with ice cream flavorings. And then started to use sweeteners like aspartame. Back then, sucrose wasn't a thing. And I was just literally just doing it in my kitchen, and I found the right balance. I thought, this tastes brilliant. It tastes like strawberry milkshake. And it costs £5 a kilo, and I'm paying £30 for £2, which is 908 grams. And I thought, okay, I can double the margin here, 100% margin, and still be half the price of the competitor. And then I started to build the website. But then I thought I need a USP. What's the USP? To be honest, what I was doing anyway was enough, but I was quite naive in business then, and I thought I needed an additional USP. Maybe I did need it, but what I did was create a customizer, which was, we had listed all of the ingredients. So we had all the proteins like whey, milk, soy, and then the amino acids like creatine, glutamine, fibers, and carbohydrates, dextrose and maltodextrose, and we listed everything, and you could write a percentage next to each one. So you could say 50% isolate whey, 10% dextrose, and you could basically 100% create your own formula. Okay, so it's quite advanced for back then, and then that would then pass through, and then I would get the products and mix it, per order. So mixing to order. So that was where Myprotein, the word came from, the name, because it was protein for you. So because what my idea was, you're buying this product which is made for a veteran bodybuilder who could be 20 stone, or it could be for a new gym user who's 9 stone. I want something that's customized. So that was the idea, and that was the hook, which was the start.
But I guess, all right. So I'm wondering, why did you decide to build your own products rather than just capitalizing on your area of expertise, which is building websites and then by definition distribution, and not maybe partnering with an existing brand that has already done all the homework and they have all the formulas and everything right, and then you just sell those products through your website?
I guess that's too easy. For me, I wanted to own a vertical supply chain. I saw the vision of owning that, having a brand online, and just owning it from cow to customer, which was the mantra was coined in the end. I guess I probably didn't see the total vision of it, but I saw enough to be in control. I like to be in control of my businesses, and I saw that owning that whole supply chain would be a lot more scalable.
How big was your vision? Because you started in your kitchen, but right now, obviously you're already sold, but now, Myprotein, I think, does over 300 million in annual revenue. Was your dream that big?
Honestly, probably not. I could sit here and say yes, it was, but no, I was just trying to create the best version at that moment. I was living very much in the now. I know you get the analogy where game by game, set by set. That's how I was living. I was very present at that period. I was very in the tunnel focused, So I saw the big potential, but I saw us taking over Maxi Muscle, which was the leader in the UK, but I didn't see it being the number one brand in the world, which it is now.
Mind blowing. Okay, let's talk about the scalability. How did you scale from a small brand, literally like creating the recipes from your kitchen, to becoming a household name?
In terms of marketing, or?
Let's go first from a funding point of view.
Okay, funding. Well, I didn't have any money then. I went to NatWest. I went to a bank and a different bank and asked for a loan. He said no. I went to NatWest and they gave me an overdraft of £500. And now that sounds an arbitrary number, but it's actually it's the maximum overdraft I could get. So I started with £500, and that was the only ever funding in the business till I sold. So I maintained 100% equity, no investors, no debt, all the way through till exit. So it was very much bought the protein. It's a cash cow. So I bought the whey. So I bought 4 sacks of whey at the start, sold it, and with a profit bought 8. That's how it evolved.
Right.
It was self-funded, bootstrapped.
What is your relationship with cash flow? Because typically organic growth entails slower growth because you're reinvesting your profits, right? Or maybe in the form of debt if you're contracting some debt. And inorganic growth, if you get external investment, you are reducing your equity, but at the same time, you're gaining perhaps quicker market share due to the incremental of cash that you have in your business and then disposable resources. What's the greatest lesson that you've learned in that regard?
If I'm honest, I didn't know about taking angel funding or VC funding. I didn't really understand all of that until much, much later. I worked within my means, which was a blessing and a curse. It was probably a curse because I could have expanded quicker maybe, but it was a blessing because it kept me very focused and it didn't give me any option. All I had was what I had. I didn't have any idea of anything outside of that vacuum, and I just ran with it. So look, it's a question I've asked myself as well recently. Well, not recently, over the years, when I've self-reflected. If I would have had a cash injection earlier, could I have made it bigger, quicker? Potentially, yeah, but potentially, I don't know. I think everything, was perfect the way it was at the time. Would I do it differently now? Probably, yes, for sure. I would take investment and nitro it, only because I know. So I think that you should really make that decision based on the business where you are. There's no right answer, I don't think, where you should bootstrap or get funded.
Then my second question about scalability is hiring. Naturally, hiring is probably one of, in my opinion, the most important skills any founder can have. What is your hiring approach, and what's the greatest lesson that you've learned again in that regard?
I agree 100%. I had limited funds. So until around 2007, 2008, it was pretty much me. I did everything. And then, except for we had production team who made the products, and I obviously delegated that. But in terms of all the management side of it, marketing, operations, business development, all of that side was me. But when the step change happened, when I brought my senior management team in 2008, and so I brought in 3 or 4 directors who were marketing, operations, finance, and later business development, sales, MPD, commercial. But that 3 cohort, that team was really elevated. So what I did was I really wanted to bring in a team that covered my weaknesses. So they mitigated I'm an entrepreneur, I'm forward thinking, I've got the energy, but I'm not. They brought in a different skill set, which was better than me. So I wanted someone to teach me about their disciplines, and luckily I brought in really good people in each discipline. And they all elevated it every area, and I learned every day from them. So we worked as a great team. I actually used Myers-Briggs as well at the time. I don't know if you know the personality test, but it's a bit deeper than that. Mm-hmm. And actually, did a Myers-Briggs test on all of them and myself, and I made sure everyone worked I just wanted everyone to be fluid and there'd be no ego, be no conflicts and no headbutting, because obviously that is painful in business.
How did you achieve that?
So it's a personality test called Myers-Briggs. It's probably a bit out of date now. It's 15 years ago, but it effectively works out what type of person you are in terms of your traits. It gives you a four letter, whether you're an introvert, extrovert, different types of people, and it tells you what works better who works better with each other. So I overlaid that after my interviews, and it seemed to work.
So you basically put together a management team 4 to 5 years after you launched the business.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, what were the revenues back then? Mainly because I want the audience to understand, when is it the right moment for you to start?
Ooh, yeah. Look,
journey?
I can't actually remember exactly. The revenues weren't that big, but the profit was. We were running at like 30% EBITDA. So I think it was around 10 million when I brought the team in, but we were making like 2 or 3 million profit EBITDA. We could have scaled quicker, but I wanted to create a lean ship, but then it really did ramp up. It then went to 2025. It was on a real high trajectory.
And as a young man, as a young entrepreneur, with no shareholders, having 100% of your business, having 2 to 3 million possibly to distribute in terms of dividends, what were you doing with that money? Were you reinvesting?
Reinvesting, yeah. All of it. So I one thing, again, it's something I've learned in the years after, but I've got a delayed gratification. I do that naturally. So I didn't go out and buy a shiny new car or anything too excessive. I did write myself a dividend check of 1 million at some point. I remember, and that was the penny drop, right? We're making money here. But I just kept on kicking the money back in and looked at the end goal, which I think is a key lesson for any entrepreneurs now. Once you start making that money, don't go out and buy the shiny objects, bet yourself a little bit more and you can make a lot more money down the track.
When during Myprotein's journey did you have this is working moment?
So there was 2 moments. One was the write myself £1 million cash dividend. I think I was 26 then. And then the other one was probably when I was 24, because I started Myprotein when I was 23, when Danny, the parcel force driver, he used to come because I used to work full time. So in the morning, he used to go and make the orders at 5 a.m. till 8 a.m. in the lockup garage. Then I went to work from 9 till 5 or such thereabouts. And then I used to go back to the lockup to pack the orders into parcels. And then at about 6, Danny, the parcel force driver, came to collect the parcels. So that was my working day. Then I used to go home and do the emails, customer service, website development. So that was my long working day. But one day, Danny came back and he says, Oliver, I can't fit all the parcels in. He dropped off all the parcels at the depot, came back with an empty big van. And then he said, but I can't fit in. I'm going to have to phone one of my colleagues to come and pick them up. And that was my moment when I thought, wow. Because when I first came, I was putting a few parcels in the back and then it was like a full van and half a van. And then it came to a point where I needed 2 vans to come. And yeah, that was like a moment. And
in that sort of aha moment, did you change your strategy in any way or you just carried on?
Didn't change anything, no. I already knew, if I'm honest. I already knew, but it was like it was a good validation for my mum a lot, because she was my first employee. She worked as a secretary in Manchester for 15, 20 years. And she came to be chief packer, chief blender, sorry. So she was blending the powders, but she was always she's very cautious. She's very cautious. Oliver, this is not right. It's too much risk. But that was like a moment for her, I think, as well. And that made it a lot more important for me.
How did your parents feel when you made £1 million?
I don't think I told them, to be honest.
Why didn't you tell them?
People don't need to know every detail, It looks like you're showing off. I didn't need to validate it with anyone.
Did you tell anyone at all?
No. I think my mum might have known because she was moved more into accounts at that point within the business. She signed off all the checks, but I kept it to myself because it opens a lot of things that it brings. It doesn't. What value does it bring? What value does it bring? I've learned that.
Let's talk about other learnings. What is the biggest lesson you've learned in the supplements industry?
In the supplements industry, there's a lot of nonsense that goes on. I guess there's a lot of stuff that's just marketing and storytelling. There's a lot of people that do it well. which is good. But I guess for me, it's more about the. But there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad. But I guess that's in a lot of industries, I guess.
Let's talk about marketing, because in consumer goods industries, I think it's an incredibly important business unit. What's the greatest lesson that you've learned?
It's probably the most important, I think, because B2C businesses. Yeah. The lesson that I've learned, you've got to always evolve. Look, the way I marketed Myprotein over 20 years ago is very different to how I market now. And even like towards the end of, even 7 years into Myprotein, it's very different to how it started. So I think you've got to look for the white space. You've got to look for the green grass in terms of these. If you're just going to follow people marketing, you're not going to ever be the leader. I think you've got to be the trendsetter. Not everything's going to work. But that's where you get the low cost per acquisition. That's where you can ride the wave. What's
one initiative that works, that you can tell, yeah, this works?
What has worked for me in the past? Yeah. Myprotein back in the day, cost per acquisition was £2.34 on Google AdWords. That works. You can't, even for 10 times that, you can't really get a whey protein acquisition now. And the lifetime value of that is very short. So I think the one thing, my best ever marketing initiative so far was the referral scheme, which was a win-win, which is very common now, but I invented it, which was where you get, when you join Myprotein, you get a referral code, MP1, a random number. You give that to a friend. They then use that code on the website. They get a discount, and the referrer gets then points to his account. I did that, and that was, no one else was doing it then. And that creates, the cost of acquisition was pennies. It was a third of all new business for Myprotein back then. But now, obviously,
a third, wow.
A third, yeah. And that's, it's huge. It's a huge thing. But now, pretty much everyone does that anyway, and it's sort of a must do. So yeah, that's a perfect example. When you do something fresh and with initiative, you're going to get real good results.
What's your view on working with influencers?
Since influencers become more of a thing, I've been more not as in the weeds, but from afar, I think it's very difficult to get. Working with macro influencers it's hard because they charge a lot, and what the real value is, I'm not sure. I'm not sure the cost per acquisition is there, the return on investment. I think there's more value in the micros or the mids. It's a bit more authentic as well. And I think the consumer's seen a lot of, they've come blind to a macro influencer promoting a product. I think it's sort of like they just scroll past it now. It's come subconsciously, it's become a blind spot. So I think there's still use there. It's just got someone who's authentic, someone who really actually does believe in the product. And you can really, the micro signals, you can see that, I think, a lot more than people know. So I think there's value in it, but I think it's not as simple as just getting an influencer and giving them a product and it'll work.
Let's talk about the acquisition of Myprotein, which happened in 2011, right?
Yes.
Why did you sell it?
So the analogy I always use is if you've got a one-arm bandit, if you've got a fruit machine and you've got all your money in the fruit machine and you keep on spinning it, you keep on winning jackpot, there's got to be a point where you've got to press cash out or partial cash out, because if you have all your net worth in one thing and you keep on spinning the wheel, it's probably not sensible. Because look, even though the risk was very small of anything going catastrophically wrong, I had children at the time, and I needed to. So I wanted to de-risk a bit, in short. But I didn't want to sell the whole business. I wanted to sell a minority stake. That was the position I went into. Take some cash off the table, bring in a strategic partner, obviously get who can add value to the business, and the business. Then we were in 5 European countries. We were number 1 in Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and we wanted to then expand into Eastern Europe and further east. So that was the value of the strategic partner I wanted. And so yeah, it's a simplified de-risk, I guess.
And what did the sale look like, as in comparison to your initial structure of the sale? So did you end up selling a minority?
No, it was very different. So I sold 100% of the business in the end.
Why?
Because but I rolled a large equity stake. Half of the value of the business I rolled into the bigger, at the time I thought bigger company, the Hook Group, and so I had I think about 14% share of that business. So the reason why, so I sat down with multiple private equity firms. We were a hot potato. We were the best, it's nutrition, wellness, internet, online brand. We had all of the different pillars which were growing like a weed. So I sat down with one, and we really went advanced with one into a point where into exclusivity. So in a bidding process, you put your bids in, and you look at what's what. Then you go into something. You pick one person. You go exclusive for a month, so they can do due diligence on your business. So at the start of that process, I actually said to them, "Look, all my management team and myself are going to be focused on doing the due diligence. So numbers are going to taper off a little bit because we're not driving it every day as much." But not a lot. It'll just be a slight taper. Come to the end of the month, they said no problem. And at the end of the month, the numbers slightly went down, and we're talking a few percent here. And it was already, it was going like this. But they said, "Oh, the numbers are going down. We're going to have to chip it a little bit, which is just basically reduce the value." I said, "Look, forget it," because I sat down at the start of this process and said, "That's what you're going to do. Don't do it." And now you're looking at me in the eye, and you want me to be your partner. Deal off. I just walked out of the room, and then they tried to say, "Oh no, we were not joking, but we'll sorry for this." But by then the trust had gone. I thought, I can't be in a business with these guys when they just they renegated the promise. So then the Hook Group came in and offered a very clean deal. So it was 100% cash, no restrictions, no restricted covenants. I saw value in our discussions with the CEO, the founder, and everything seemed good. So I went with the deal, yeah.
So was the lesson here that the better deal was with a larger company that operates in the same industry rather than a private equity?
I think because I was so worn down with, obviously I've been working at a very high level for 7 years. And then the process of selling a business is very, very tough. It does drain you, I think, and then going all the way through that process of due diligence and then it falling away. I think it was a bit of a relief just to get a very clean deal. On reflection, maybe I should have taken my time, paused, gone back to running the business, and then come back to the process. But you live and you learn. It's an expensive lesson.
You then went on and built another company called Go Nutrition.
Yes.
A few years later. If you've had a successful sale, why did you build the second business? Yeah,
if I'm being honest there, and I will be honest, I built that from the wrong place. I built that because the Myprotein, I started, we had a few issues, and I wasn't seeing eye to eye with the direction of the business was going. There's a few issues. So I created Myprotein, Go Nutrition, as sort of a mitigation of risk, because I wanted to then build it to not replace Myprotein, but maybe a little bit to replace, because I went from my life having consumed 100% with Myprotein to the next day not having that. Myprotein was my purpose, and I lost my purpose overnight. So I had a period of void, and I thought Go Nutrition would be the right thing to fill that void. It wasn't. But again, it is all a learning curve.
Why wasn't it?
Because it wasn't my purpose, really. I like to build new things and build new categories, I believe. I'm good at that. And Go Nutrition was very much a Me Too business.
But then you went on and sold that business again.
Yeah, but I didn't, again, being open, it wasn't sold for a huge amount of money. It was, washed its face, maybe a little bit more.
You've been through these exits, you've been through growing, obviously, a very large business and generating a substantial amount of profit. And you effectively come from a very financially humble background. What is money to you?
Good question. I guess, look, business can be you looked at as a game if you're just really, distant. And it's a high stakes game. And I guess the currency of winning is money. And that's what I used to believe anyway. So money isn't something I had when I was growing up. And I guess you always want what you haven't got in life, generally, typically. And, I wanted more. And obviously money buys you freedom, it buys you opportunities, options, and it buys you some material things as well. So I guess that's what money was then. And I guess money for me now is different again. I guess it gives me opportunity. It gives me options. That's what it does. It certainly doesn't solve problems.
What is your relationship now with money?
It's I guess it's gone full circle, really. Look, people always say to me, well, not always, but a lot of people say, you've got loads of money, Oliver, you should do this, you should do that, you should be very happy with everything. And I am happy. I'm very happy. But it brings as many problems as it does as brings positivity. And that's not a negative thing. But it doesn't solve everything, is what I'm saying. It's what it does and what I'm very grateful for. It enables me to help other people, and it enables me to live freely and with options. I don't need to, I can do whatever I want, whenever I want now within reason.
Which problems did money bring to your life?
Jealousy. A lot.
From people that you care?
Some. Yeah, I think it's jealousy is something that runs deep, and unfortunately it can go in within families, it will go within close friends, acquaintances, external people. I think it's a disease that's spread pretty wide.
Did it change you?
It's made me more guarded, I guess. Yes, for sure. I think so. I think it has to, because otherwise people will take advantage. That doesn't, I've got a close circle. Still, my bestest friends are still the people I was in primary school with. There's still 12 of us that we all knew each other from primary school. And, it's an amazing thing. We're still best friends now. I've got different circles of friends, but they're my true friends. They knew Oliver before anything, and they still love me for me.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest mistake that you've made as an entrepreneur?
I don't like to look at things as mistakes. I like to reframe it as what's the best lesson I've had. Mm-hmm. I know that. I guess it is probably the sale process. I probably, again, it comes back to what you said at the start. I should take more time with things sometimes. Taking a breath and just taking a little bit longer to do something sometimes is the right decision. On big decisions, I do that a lot more now. And I probably should have done that on the sale process.
During your journey as an entrepreneur, which anybody that is an entrepreneur would definitely agree with this, but it can be incredibly tough and hard, and it can take so much away from you. Did you ever consider of quitting?
No, but it does. It is super. And this is something I've covered on a few podcasts before, but I think, we don't look at entrepreneurial journey, especially as a solo founder, as it's very tough mentally. And it's a lonely place. It's a very lonely place. As any entrepreneur, it's a lonely place. I think we need to support that more within the community, because you do have bad days. Everyone has dark days, and we have great days as well. But we all need to remember, and we need to, on those low days, we need to support each other to know that the next day is coming, and it's not always going to be, it's going to be peaks and troughs. It's never linear.
What has entrepreneurship cost you personally?
I'd say what it's given me more. It's given me a lot more than it's cost. But I don't, my brain doesn't think like that, honestly. I don't know what it's cost me. I don't know if it's me hiding from it or not.
What have you gained from it?
I've gained mental fortitude. I've gained a lot of pride, honestly. It's gained a lot of opportunities that wouldn't have come from before. And yeah, I guess they're the key things.
If you wouldn't be an entrepreneur, what would you be?
That's a good question. Like you said yourself, you're unemployable. I think I've never been someone who likes to be told what time to stand by the bed in the morning or what to do generally. So I'd always do what I need to do to get to the end result, which I do. I guess I'd probably still be a web developer or a developer of some kind. That's my passion.
If you could go back in time and talk to the young Oliver, in your early 20s, what advice would you give him?
Believe in yourself. Just focus on what you believe, because you know yourself better than anyone, and you have everything you need within to execute what you want.
Have you ever doubted yourself?
Sometimes, but then I remember that is fear, and fear is a liar, and you need to just separate those. You need to separate that emotion, because I don't believe anything positive comes from a fearful thought. Nothing ever.
What is your relationship with yourself?
It's a good one. I'm very critical of myself internally. In terms of I always want best. I'm never content. So when I say critical, I mean in the sense of I always want to do better, and I never rest on my laurels. I never let grass grow in between my feet, in a sense. I always wanted to continually improve every day. And one of my rules was still is, I have to do 3 positive things in a day. They could be very small things, but I'm not going to close my eyes until I've done 3 positive things every day. And I've done that for 25 years.
What are the 3 positive things you've done yesterday?
I don't know if I can remember, but what were the 3 things? So one of the things was to actually to watch one of your podcasts, and then and so it is a positive thing. Another thing was to message someone that I don't message enough, and I probably should just reach out and see how they are. And one of the other things was going to the gym. They can be small things, and they can be quite trivial, but I write them in the morning typically, and then I do them.
As a father, how did you co-parenting with entrepreneurship?
I was. It's obviously challenging, but I was quite. My first child came like pretty much in the sale period. It was right in that period, so I never so in those hard in the bunker years of building Myprotein, I didn't have children.
Would you advise anyone to build a business while they're raising a baby?
I think it's a very personal thing to do. I think it makes it a lot more difficult. And it depends on how supportive your other half is, and whether they're working full time or not. I wouldn't advise or not advise either way, to be honest. That's up to them.
That's a good point. What's your view in that regard? So I think in life you also have a co-founder, right? Which is your partner. I mean, if you get to have a romantic partner. What do you think your romantic partner should be like in order for you to build a successful business?
Again, I was very much. I wasn't really in a serious relationship, or maybe at some point, but I was very disciplined. I knew what I needed to do, and that was my priority in life, if I'm honest. Maybe that's selfish of me, but it was very much where I was in that growth period. I wouldn't want to, personally, I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with someone who needs to be a certain way. I always want someone to be how they are. And if that doesn't work for me, then there's no point in a relationship, and I've got to be how they want me to be as well. I'm not going to change for them. I wouldn't want them to change for me. But
for someone that right now is building a business and their business is priority number 1 in their lives, and their partner challenges that and is not happy with the business being priority 1 and the relationship being priority 2, what would you say to this person?
I think you've got a choice to make. You got to decide what's more important for you. Yeah, of course, there's so many factors that could affect that, whether you've got children and I don't know what. But for me, you know, that's a conversation you need early at the start before you get serious, because it's obviously going to fester away and become an issue later on. But I'm no relationship coach. I've got I'm not. That's definitely not one of my fortes. But certainly for me, you got to make a choice, and you've got to. There's got to be equilibrium.
Do you think one can build a highly successful business if the business is not their priority number 1?
No doubt. It's got to be priority 1.
What would you advise someone that is looking to start a business? And what would your advice be within their first 30 days? What should they do?
Is this when they launch business or prior to launching?
Someone wants to become an entrepreneur.
All right, okay, yeah.
But they don't know what it is. They just want to become an entrepreneur. What would you advise them to do within the first 30 days?
I would say, just spend 30 days researching, but treat research as a full-time job. So actually and become structured around it. Say, look, week one, this is what I want to do. So week one, I might do some desktop research in markets, but have very much deliverables at the end of the week one. So set yourself targets in the framework. So research, end of week one, the deliverables are, this is the market I'm interested in, it's growing well, what's the reasons? Week two, then go deeper into that market and try and find a product and a commercial, a viable a solution to a problem within the market. Make it something rational for you. And at the end of the week two, have these deliverables. End of week three, blah, blah, blah. And then I would do it that way. And then at the end of week four, make sure you're doing at least 12 hours a day if you can. If you work full time, figure it out, because that's how it's going to be when you're being an entrepreneur. And then at the end of it, ask yourself and look in the mirror and ask yourself a straight question, is this for me or not?
And for a first-time entrepreneur that is going to do that and then build their first business, a lot of people, I believe that, particularly in this day and age, feel like they need to quickly become entrepreneurs and grab the so-called founder accolade or title. And they also believe that they need to build a highly successful first business. What would you tell to these people?
Stop listening to what other people tell you. What other people think is none of your business. And don't listen to the mentors on Instagram and TikTok. And, for me, not trying is failing. Failing isn't not trying. If you try and it fails, that's not failing. It's simple, because you are going to fail. You are going to fail whether the first business fails or whether there's a campaign you launch within your first business that fails. There's going to be failure within being an entrepreneur. And that is one of the biggest things, I think, resilience, getting back up after you've been on the floor and going again. And, I had businesses before Myprotein that failed, but for me, there were lessons. I know that's a cliche, but they all helped then when I started Myprotein. They all came together, joined the dots, and that helped grow the business at that point.
In hindsight, they're lessons, but back then, were they also lessons for you? So the moment that you closed that first business or second business before Myprotein, did they also feel like lessons?
No, they didn't. They didn't feel like, because I didn't understand it then.
Yeah.
When you're at the bottom of the mountain, you don't know what the top looks like.
Yeah.
So, but when you're at the top, you see what the bottom looks like. So I didn't understand it, and that's what I mean. I joined the dots later. So I think you don't need to always understand everything in life. Just understand that that's how it is, and it will serve you at some point. I'm pretty sure of that.
As a father, would you like your kids to become entrepreneurs?
I want them to do whatever makes them happy. That's the most important thing. Because if you try and force a square peg into a round hole, it doesn't work. If you try and put someone in a cage, I know if I got Shreds put in a cage, I want to break out of the cage. I have wings, I want to fly, and I want my children to fly.
What's one topic that you haven't discussed in any other public engagement, including podcasts, that we can talk about?
Oh, any public... I don't know. I've got a few. Probably not suitable for her. No, I'm joking.
You can pick one.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that, maybe my hobby. I don't know. I rarely talk about my create. I think it's very important for everyone to have a creative outlet.
While you're an entrepreneur?
I think so. Sometimes, yeah. I've had this, my hobby I've been doing for 30 years. So I've always done it throughout my businesses. Maybe I wasn't doing it as much through Myprotein years because I didn't have the time. But I think, being an entrepreneur typically is very analytical. It's very systems driven. It's systematic. It's pragmatic. There's all these things. But I think it's good to have a counterbalance for everything in life. So having a creative outlet, whether that's writing, drawing, music, dancing, whatever your creative outlet is, I think it's important to have one. So,
what's your hobby?
So I DJ. Have done since since I was 16. I bought my first turntables, and 5-6 years after that, I make music. So I produce house music. I've played all over the world. I've had over 20 releases on various different labels. So it's my hobby. It's a serious hobby.
Yeah, it's a serious hobby.
Yeah, but I love it. It's music is a very important passion of mine. Electronic music.
Fantastic. And what have you learned from your hobby?
I don't go into that with a learn. Actually, I just do it. Yeah, that's the thing.
Maybe that's the key.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a counterbalance. I go in there just to let myself express myself, and that's I don't go in for anything other than that. And once you've made music, you listen back to it. It really does reflect on part of your life, and you could feel how you were then. And I love building things, so it's no different to music.
I love it. Oliver, my last question to you is now a tradition in the show that we ask absolutely every single person. And it is by far my favorite question due to the benefit that it provides to anyone listening to it. But also it's quite a complicated question to answer because it's quite important and it requires a concise answer. If you had to compress all your knowledge into one essential piece of advice that we must implement in our daily lives, what would it be?
It is a very difficult question. There's so many different ways to go with this. It's hard for me to go away from what I said before, which is believing in yourself. I know, I'm not sure, but it sort of encompasses everything because I'm a strong believer in you've got two feet and you need to stand on them. And you shouldn't. So what I mean in that, don't listen to other people all the time. Always, you've got two ears and one mouth. So yeah, of course, listen more than you speak. But at the end of the day, you always have to distill what the right decision is. Don't expect other people to do what you need to do. Again, you should do yourself. If you start relying on other people to do things, it will break. Okay? So it all comes back down to yourself. And I'm a big believer in that you can do everything you need to within your own means.
Before we finish, I'd like to discuss and briefly chat about your book. Talk to me about it.
So, Bootstrap Your Life. I in COVID-1, I was going mental like everyone was. I didn't climbing the walls. I just had my third child, and that was an amazing time. But when you're stuck in a house, you need to decompress. And actually, the reason I thought of it, I was starting to think of like moments from my journey, and I forgot some of the details. So I thought, I need to start writing this down. I started writing it down, and then a bit more the next day, and then a bit more, and it ended up becoming a book. And a manuscript really. And then I showed it a few people, and they said it's good. Sent it to some of the publishers, and Hachette, one of the bigger ones, said they wanted to publish it. So, but it was a really, really good journey. It's something I recommend everyone to do now. Maybe not a book to release with a publisher, but just a memoir, because it was a very self-reflexive journey for me. And I wrote down from from 1979 when I was born, to when I wrote the book. Actually, it was the end of my Myprotein journey, 2011, 2012. And there's lots of learns and lessons in there. It's very I think when you start writing, you reflect a lot, and it shows you weaknesses. And I think that's important to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And the book process and the self-reflective journey really help with that. It's a very introspective journey.
What are your weaknesses?
I've got lots. Look, I'm maybe I can have better relationships. So not just romantic ones. I'm talking with in business. I can understand more empathy, more compassion. I'm certainly sometimes a bit impatient, very impatient. Sometimes like to control too much in business, and I've learned to delegate more. There's a lot of things. So there's self-reflection is a weakness, but also there's the strength as well. So I think it created a sort of like a blueprint of where I need to improve. And I think I've done that over the years, because this was a number of years ago now.
Oliver, thank you so much for opening up to me and to our audience with complete honesty. As we were discussing off camera, I deeply believe that your story is probably one of the most inspirational that I've had on the show, if not maybe the most inspirational, due to its nature. So you started the business not from one of the largest cities in the world, New York, London, or Miami. You started the business from your kitchen in Manchester. Your parents were not entrepreneurs, so for you, everything was a big question mark, a big mystery, a big maze. And then you sold your business having kept 100% of your equity. So you didn't have any financial support, but at the same time, typically with financial support, it comes a strategic support, smart capital, and you didn't have that. And you did it all by yourself. And on top of that, you didn't attend university. So you're absolutely breaking every single rule that we are told in this day and age by social media, by movies of founders and TV shows, all the different factors that we're being told to have in order to become successful in business. And you've created something extraordinary from something or from a beginning that was quite ordinary. And I'm incredibly grateful that you've shared this today with me and again with our audience. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. And it's been a pleasure, truly. Thank you.